Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting point. And also, one thing that is quite interesting is the relationship between her husband and his father. There's a very interesting sort of toxic relationship between them, because he even seems to ask his dad's permission to leave in one of the dinner parties at the start. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, part of where Catherine's behaviour comes from is from copying the men.
Yeah.
So when the men are gone and she goes into the stables and she says, face the wall, she learnt that from her husband telling her to face the wall when he tried wanking to her. Like, it's all really weird behaviour that son has learnt from dad, Catherine's learnt from son, and it's all this kind of like childish learnt behaviour thing. And their relationship between father and son is awful as well. It's when he dies and he says, I shall place my 2 feet on his grave in the morning. They don't like each other.
Cheers.
Thanks, Dad.
But also you tell them to stop laughing, which is exactly what your husband says to Catherine. I thought that was really interesting how they kind of borrow that. One of the scenes I really wanted to ask you about is the scene where you shoot the horse, because I thought that horse was such an amazing performer. Tremendous acting from the horse. He was genuinely incredible.
He was my favourite actor to work with ever. So it was actually Will's birthday when we filmed it. We filmed me getting married in the morning and then me shooting the horse later on in the afternoon. And when we came to it, the horse trainer came up to me and he goes, all right, okay, the horse has 3 goes, and he'll do it once, he'll do it twice, he'll do it thrice, and then that's it. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, okay, so first go will be like, give it a go. Second time, you've got to ace it. Third time, it's kind of in case the second time doesn't work. But after the third time, guy doesn't really know, horse doesn't really know that that it's not working anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, basically, horse knows when it's working and when it's not working. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
He's got a great contract.
And so I didn't quite understand what was going on. And we kind of like went on and I was told where, I needed to do the gun and all this malark. And then I walked on. And as I walked on, I shot the horse. And as I shot the horse, literally in time, this horse leapt up and squealed, jumped, screamed, whinnied, landed on the floor, wriggled around. As I shot it and this happened, I screamed because I thought I'd shot the horse. And then I've been like, oh my God, the horse, oh my God, oh my God. And then they say, Will goes, cut. Florence, you need to carry on with the scene. I was like, I think I shot the horse. I'm like, no, he's just reacting. So this horse was so fantastic that I actually thought I'd shot this horse. And so the guy, the horse trainer, came, he was like, right, okay, so that was your first go. You got 2 more goes. I was like, oh, God, crap. So then the second go, I was like, right, okay, so this horse is really going to jump for it. Amazingly, they train this horse with they recognize what you're doing, and the horse is also linked up to a lead. And depending on what the guy does, like with these tugs and pulls and all this stuff, the horse will then perform. But the horse knows that he'll have 3 goes, and then that's it. So we did it, and it was the most amazing scene because I just had to react. This horse, I didn't have to rely on lines or someone, doing their spin on something. This horse was absolutely fantastic. So that is why it was my favorite scene, just because it was totally real. And horrible, really horrible. This horse was screaming, and I went to go and shoot it again. It's like, oh my God. So yeah, that's why it was my favorite. Also, so unlike anything I've ever done.
Yeah. And was the horse okay with you after, when you stopped filming?
This was the best bit, was like afterwards when I have to bury the horse, the guy comes up to me and he's like, okay, so you done the 3 goes? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, right, okay, so now you're doing the burying. I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay, come in. And I was like, yeah. So I was basically like in between the 2 horses' legs. And he was like, right, go a bit to your left. I was like, yeah. Go a bit to your left, yeah. Go a bit to your left, yeah. And he was like, right there, go, yeah. And he was like, he'll kick you in the face. I was like, right, okay. And he goes, you go any further, he'll smack you. And I was like, when is he going to smack me? And he goes, well, basically, if I triggered him, this horse would try and get up. And as he got up, he would just clobber me in the face. So when I'm burying that horse, I'm literally like, so yeah, brilliant.
Mate, they say you shouldn't work with animals, but that sounds like a really good experience. one of the things I really loved about, especially rewatching the film, is that sometimes you can't really tell what's actually going on in Catherine's head, especially the more the film goes on. And I wanted to ask you about one of the scenes. We talked about this briefly. We interviewed Florence for the magazine, and Florence told me this great story about a scene in the film. And it was so good, but it was such a massive spoiler that we were like, we can't put it in the magazine. So I really want to ask you, in front of these people, tell me about the big lie that she tells and how that scene came together.
So I'm going to do a bit of backstory quickly. Teddy and Catherine. I always believed that Catherine was really shocked and slightly. It's her only bit in the film where she's maternal. I don't think she is maternal, but I think it's the only bit in the film where she is. And something to note is the fact that Teddy is the only person that ever compliments her, even though she's had this entire relationship with Sebastian, with her husband, with her father-in-law, with Anna. No one is ever actually nice to her other than Teddy. Teddy says that she's beautiful. And so the way that I wanted to play that happen was that she, for the first time, was actually receiving some kindness, which is rare. And so when she ends up killing the child, I always believed that was I mean, obviously it's a difficult thing to do, but I always felt that was realizing that her survival, if she thought about it, was going to have to come before the kid. Otherwise, the kid was going to get the house and her life and her money, and she would be out on the streets before she knew it. So that last scene when Sebastian comes in and says, "We killed the kid," and she says, "And that boy was like a child to me," I never read that as anything other than the truth. I know it's a bit peculiar. But when I did that, I always found it broke my voice, because the thought of her loving something and then having to, not loving, but caring for something and then having to kill it because she had to survive before the child was always quite like, whoa, that's like nothing I've ever seen before. And then when we first watched it in front of an audience, that scene comes on and I'm watching it and I say, and that child was like that child was like, and that, whatever it is, I can't remember. That boy was like a child to me. I'm watching it and everyone starts laughing. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not funny. And then it kept on happening. People kept on laughing. And people kept on saying, oh, that laugh at the end, did you really, that lie at the end, did you really think about it? And I still, to this day, which is funny, because obviously maybe my head's too much in it, but I then probably think that that's the biggest lie in the film, because she means it when she says it. And how disturbing is that she means it?
Yeah.
She's talking about the child and uses it. She's like so manipulative. She uses it in that moment. She's allowed to show a little bit of sadness, but only when it suits her.
Right, yeah. I mean, the first time I saw it, I took it at face value and I was like, wow, we've finally seen this sort of scrap of humanity in her after all this stuff she's gone through. And then you were like, yeah, that's not actually true, she made it up. And I then watched it this time and I was like, oh my God.
Well, I don't think that she just made it up. I think she genuinely felt that, but she gave it a slight window.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then everyone told me that was like, oh yeah, Catherine's really good at pretending, isn't she? I was like, oh, okay, oops.
We haven't talked about Sebastian much, so tell me a bit about what it was like working with Cosmo and your kind of interacting together as characters.
Amazing. So working with Cosy was fantastic, and when we auditioned, Shaheen Bey casted it, and when we auditioned, we did 3 chemistry reads with 3 guys. And one of the notes that Will started giving halfway through the day was like, I want you guys to wrestle. So the aim of the game was he would try and push me and I would try and push him, and whoever fell over first won. And then we had to play the scene from there. And there were so many amazing actors that day that were really, really beautiful and had, a wonderful presence. But Cosy was the only one where me and I, we both of us, we just fought each other. And that was the key of Sebastian and Catherine, was this like push and pull, this tug, this fight. And actually it was so easy to do any of the naked sex scenes with him, any of the fighting scenes with him, because we just didn't care. It was like, if I elbowed him in the groin, it wasn't a thing. And if he kind of accidentally hit me in the chest, it wasn't a thing. It was just, that was the nature of Catherine and Sebastian, was to be borderline aggressive whilst showing their kind of attraction to one another. And he is usually so awkward to do any sex scenes, but for some reason it was just super easy, and there was no weirdness or funniness. It was just like, yeah, cool, we're open, we're doing this.
I guess because the characters feel like they're on the same page in a lot of ways, that must really help when you're actually working together. The film's been out it's been quite a long time since the film came out, and it's had such an amazing reception, and I wanted to ask you, why do you think the film, and Catherine specifically, have like resonated so well with people?
I think because it's unlike things that we've seen. I think she is I've said this so many times, but I really believe it. I think she's a very modern woman in 1865, and that's rare. I think we're very used to seeing a period drama where it sticks inside kind of the norm, and it doesn't. It doesn't stick inside the norm, and we actually see this woman want things, and not only want things, but she goes out and gets them when she's not allowed them, and weirdly, that's quite rare.
Yeah.
And I think lots of people have been attracted by that. Lots of people have been repulsed by that, and I equally love that too. There's been so many Q&As where people have just shouted abuse at the fact that Catherine is awful, and I'm like, yeah, great, give me more. And then there's lots of people that want to, thank Alice for this character, and I just think it's not usual that we find a woman like this, as young as she is, to react the way that she does, and people have responded to that, which is great, and I love talking about it. So yeah.
Good. And what does it mean for you then, given what you just said, to be nominated for the EE Rising Star Award?
Oh, amazing. It's a bit of a weird one. My parents have been arguing over who gets the 3+1. So I've been like, guys, calm down. It's not worth a divorce, I swear. It's mental. I think when we made this film, it was so tiny and it was such a small family and it was made for such a small amount of money that I never, ever, ever thought that it was going to make it this far. Not because I didn't believe in it, but because it's just it's not expected. And when we were making it, there was such a feel of like everybody mucking in, and if that chair needed to be moved, then someone quickly moved it, which is so odd for film usually, or TV, anything. And there was such a special feel because everyone was invested because of the storyline. We weren't all paid major checks. We were all kind of aware that this was because we all wanted to do it. So when we worked on it, everyone was putting their everything, 150%. There was no one that didn't want to be there. And so to see this film now go so far is amazing. And every time it's gone to a new festival or a new award or a new ceremony or a new whatever, it's really lovely to see it bloom.